What's going on, everyone, and huge welcome to episode number 3. We purchased the 1985 Volkswagen Doka truck, and we're literally building out a shell into the back of it so that we can serve coffee out of it. I would argue that this is going to be the most exhilarating and transformative portion of the entire truck build out. Get excited with us. I can't wait to turn our focus towards wrapping the exterior portion of the frame that we created in episode 1 and 2 with aluminum sheet metal. It's a cool moment. We learned a lot through the process. If this is your first time here, our goal with these videos are to provide you with the highest quality content on building out your DIY coffee truck or coffee trailer or travel trailer. And of course, that's by taking you through our process and our journey. So before we jump into that content, I really want to walk you guys through what we completed in episode number 2. So let's go. So as you can see, I made my way all the way up to the top of the frame and began applying a tape that was so strong, and I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about it.
We're getting our first bit of VHB tape. VHB stands for very high bond. Honestly, this is what's going to be holding the aluminum on.
As you can see, this is where we purchased the VHB tape. It's on uline.com. Pretty expensive, but totally worth it because the performance lives up to the hype because the tape replaces rivets, bolts, screws, welding, and liquid adhesive. So as a gauge to you guys, we only needed 3 rolls of 1 inch by 36 yards of tape. So that's 3 rolls. We eventually also ordered 1 roll of 1/2 inch by 36 yards. That was going to be used for the trim around the doors and on the actual main frame. I actually found this product and received a lot of my inspiration from a YouTube video. So if you type in Twinvestors into the YouTube search bar, you'll see that I have a playlist of all the videos that I watched during our build out process. Of course, no need to reinvent the wheel. I really enjoyed the videos of Homesteadonomics, and they really changed the game for us. It's clearly very helpful to have a partner in crime while doing this step in particular. Try your best not to touch the aluminum sheet metal onto the tape until you're ready to go down. This step, you want to just take your time and make sure you have everything lined up perfectly before you go down, because once it's down, it's down. And for those asking, we did have a strategy when we were determining which sheet metal went down first, and of course we decided to go with the top one initially. Later you'll see that we actually go bottom and then we go up, because the way when we overlap each piece of sheet metal, it would prevent water from being able to just leak down from the top and then go straight through the open crack. And finally, you can see that the tape is pressure activated as I was rolling it out with the mini roller. As you can see, don't bolt the frame down to the bed of the truck quite yet. That won't happen until after we paint. And look who decided to make a guest appearance. Smile! Here we are applying VHB tape to the upper curve of the top of the frame. I was careful when installing the wooden beams so that they would not protrude past the metal portion of the curve. This was so satisfying, and as you can see, we're making that bend right there, and notice that some of the edges had overhang. That would eventually be cut off with a router. Yo, so this protective plastic was so hard to get off. It was actually on both sides of the metal. Before applying, make sure you take that off on one of the sides. If you didn't see in the prior videos, I ended up purchasing our metal on onlinemetals.com, and it took me forever to figure out what the thickness should be for the aluminum sheet metal. In all the videos that I watched, I was never able to really figure out what other people were using. 0.032 inches worked great for us. We were always going to cut it in half before we applied it onto the truck. So that's what we did. And anytime we were cutting the metal, we would use a metal blade on a jigsaw and just cut it all the way down back to it. The height of this particular crease right here determined the height of all the other creases, of course, going all the way around the truck. Quick fast forward moment right here as we started getting excited. We finally finished this side. Can't see it, but we ended up putting the bottom part on first, and then we went to the top and then started cutting all the way around with our router. Finally, I wanted to chat with you guys about this side. We had to be a little bit more methodical on our approach here, and let's talk more on that here in a second.
Catching the glimpse of what it's going to look like, because the doors are going to be open, and that will open up everything inside of the truck. We still have to cut a hole up there for the air conditioner, but looky there.
What's up, Jeremy? What are we doing today?
Today, we are finishing the sheet metal.
The whole structure is built. You can't even see it because of how shiny it is in the sun. What's up, Justin? Good morning.
What up? Good morning.
This thing up here is about to get cut off. Here we go. This is it.
Here I am with the router, just doing what I need to do and cutting off all the excess length. The method really didn't transpire until we started cutting the doors out. So that's what we did here as we rode along the door encasement. Make sure that these cuts are as clean as possible. Save this metal because we're going to reuse it when we actually make the doors. Guys, and check this out. The metal went everywhere. Haha, onward. This is the first time we got to move and drive the truck with the shell in the back. So this was exciting. You can see it in the face right there. We started prepping for weld, and well, you see These wasps started trying to play us, and you can see them right there in the top corner. Yeah, they didn't last long. Now this is where things started to really get fun. We began welding the doors on, and as you can see, well, this is the only video that we got because it was tough. It was really tough. Because we don't have a ton of footage of us actually welding the door structure into the door encasement, I decided to draw it out so that we had a better picture of what was actually going on. Before welding these steel piano hinges anywhere, we actually strategically drilled holes in the middle section of the hinge to give us better weld points. You can actually buy these hinges with holes already in them. We were coming up with a plan on the fly because when we began welding it in the first place, we didn't really have a ton of surface area to get a really strong weld. So that really caused us to implement design change in the middle of this, and we ended up putting holes all the way down the middle section of the piano hinge. So that's what you can see there. Take a look at the hinge right here. I mean, that's exactly what happens when you don't have it welded to anything. So it pinches together and you don't have a parallel surface, but when it's fully welded and implemented, it does end up being parallel, and there's a small gap between this right here. If you can find a small screw, as you can see, I kind of erased it, but if you find a small enough screw to be able to fit in there, that would allow for a pretty flat and pretty easy way to fasten the hinge to the top plate of the door encasement. We personally started this task by welding the steel piano hinges onto the door structure. So you can see it right here. At that point, you have one component. It makes it easier as you begin to weld the top portion of the hinge onto the top portion of the door encasement right there. Because you're able to move the door out, that actually gives you a little bit more room to sneak the welder in and get great welds on the top portion. Again, you want these welds to be strong because you really don't want them to fall onto customers. That would not be a good day for anybody. So make sure you're getting great surface and weld contact. We even did welds going all the way down the top portion where this portion of the hinge meets the sheet metal. And when doing that, we did burn the sheet metal a little bit, and we also didn't get perfect welds right there either, but it was good enough for our application. So yeah, we accidentally burnt the metal on top of the door. It's all good because at the end of the day, we decided to just wipe it down, paint over it, then we threw trim on it. If I didn't call it out, you guys wouldn't know. You can't even see it. Good. So there you have it. The doors are functioning, and as you can see, we're just trying to prep it so that we can put the final pieces of sheet metal on. We put the VHB tape on and then pin the door closed with the clamps. Per usual, we grab the bottom piece first and then begin prepping to put the top portion on. So that includes peeling back the red portion of the VHB tape, applying a portion on the bottom part right there, as you can see, and finally putting the top portion on. After that, we just peeled back protective film off of the metal, and voila, she is cute. Oh yeah, the sheet metal that we're using here is also the sheet metal that we saved from earlier after routing out the door encasement. So here we're just using the same steps that we used for the serving door on the back door. Pretty simple stuff, but we want to make sure that you guys see it from this angle just in case you can catch something new. Let us know if you have any questions. And again, we are just taking off the bottom portion of the red film and putting on the bottom portion of the sheet metal. Look at that. And now we're just prepping for the top portion of the door. So you have to peel back the film right here so that you can apply the VHB. And eventually we're going to go get the top portion and apply it. What you are now seeing are doors that are on the hinges with the sheet metal. I'm freezing cold. Oof, it's probably like 35 degrees, it feels like. Another aspect of the build I want to talk to right here is putting on the midpoint trim, as you can see right here. It's a really thin 1-inch wide piece of metal, which works out perfect because the VHB tape is actually 1 inch wide. And simple trick here, you want to make sure you put the VHB tape on the metal strip first and then apply to the body of the metal structure. And as you guys know, the sheet metal does overlap one on top of the other. So you want to make sure to apply the trim on the top portion of the overlap, not the bottom or not the middle, because otherwise it might not sit flat and you're going to get a janky looking trim piece. So get it on the top. Final tip for these particular pieces of trim, make sure you leave enough room for all of the edge portion pieces of the trim to fit snug up against the middle trim, because if you don't leave that room, it might sit on top of it, and again, it's just not going to be sitting flat. So be on the lookout for that. And let's be real, you don't really need the two pieces of trim to touch or bud right up against each other. At the end of the day, it'll be all right if there's a gap. I'd honestly rather that than actually get to that point and have them overlapping. I wanted to throw this picture up here so that you guys could see what the black trim ended up looking like. It can be seen on both the door and around the door encasement. The middle trim was painted beige, and all of this will be covered in the next video. Just be on the lookout for that. Let's jump back into video number 2, where we start talking about the water guard and everything that we did to get it to where it needs to be, because this is where we did it. Can everyone see the channel up on top with all of the holes? Let's get closer. Right there. This is actually what I'm calling a water guard, and basically we have a rubber that we purchased from Lowe's that slides within the channel and is held up with set screws in all the hole locations. So on a rainy day like today, when we're serving customers, the rubber flap will flap over and will prevent rain from going through the crack at the top of the door. For this accommodation, you have to weld several 1" by 1" pieces of angle iron to the top part of the door. Eventually, you'll drill and rivet the channel through the back. Before fastening the water guard, we need to determine the length of each water guard and the number of set screws we need across the span of the water guards. In our case, we decided to use 13 set screws across the span of our serving window of 54 inches. And of course, this is accounting for the overhang on each side of the window itself. And then we use 7 set screws going across the rear window, which spans 48.5 inches. So to do this, you need to mark where each hole will be. And while using a drill press, go ahead and drill one hole and then switch the drill bit out for the tap, because at that point you're not going to want to move the channel from where it is currently. After that, hand spin the tap all the way through the hole, but make sure you don't strip the hole by going too far through the channel and then just continuously going, because if you go too far, it's going to get stopped and you're going to go right through the hole. Let's hop over to the scene really quickly so I can show you a visual reference on what we did. We're looking at the channel right now with some of the rivets coming through, so you'll notice rivet, rivet, rivet. You'll also notice that the holes that we drilled out and tapped for the set screws don't particularly line up with the rivet holes. We ended up doing that on purpose because whenever you put the set screw in, we didn't want it to go all the way through and interfere with the rivet. And this is me filming the last video that you just saw. Shout out to Meg for getting us the action shots. This is the tap we use for the set hole screws. You can also buy a tap with the drill from Amazon for pretty cheap. That way you're ensuring that you're using the proper drill size for the particular tap that you use. And now we're ready to fasten our newly fabricated water guard onto the truck. Check it out. So we measured, marked, and drilled holes that were level with the door and so lined up with the structural pieces in the back. The initial holes were drilled through the front, then you could see the holes on the back side, right? After that, somebody needs to hold the channel up and we need to drill through the back of the channel so that the rivets would line up with the channel. Make sure you use drill bits that are sized properly with the rivets. Also, I used aluminum rivets to go with the aluminum channel. You don't want two dissimilar metals touching, because that would potentially cause corrosion in the future. I think that's all that we have time for tonight. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you found value in it, feel free to hit the thumbs up or subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified whenever we create new content. That's definitely the #1 way to support this channel. Looking forward to the next video where we get to show you how we painted the entire shell of the truck, as well as worked with the trim and got it looking incredible on the outside. Get ready, follow along, and let's do this thing. On to the next. Thanks, guys.